All right, the Invictus Games wrapped up on the weekend as a big week awaits the rest of the royal family. We're joined once again this morning by our royal. Okay, the Invictus Games came to a close with a really emotional speech from Prince Harry. Can you tell us a bit more about that? And now that the games are over, what lies ahead for both Harry and Meghan?
The Invictus Games ended with applause. Cameras captured Prince Harry delivering yet another emotional speech, one about pain, healing, and resilience. But while the spotlight bathed him in praise, a much darker reality was taking shape behind the scenes. The very foundation that Harry built his post-royal identity upon is now being torn apart by a financial scandal so massive it threatens to destroy what little credibility he has left. According to explosive new reports, the chair of the Invictus Games Foundation has allegedly issued a legal threat against Prince Harry, demanding a full explanation for a staggering $30 million discrepancy in the charity's financial records. That's right, $30 million. Gone, unaccounted for. And Harry's name is right in the middle of it. Before we dive deeper into the scandal that could bring down Harry's last remaining public asset, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you're going to want to stay updated on this story because it's only just getting started. The Invictus Games were meant to be sacred, a tribute to wounded veterans, a place for recovery, community, and pride. But now, for many, it feels like betrayal. What began as Harry's most noble effort may now become his biggest downfall. The timing couldn't be worse. Just as the world was praising his closing remarks, internal memos were leaked revealing a troubling truth. Tens of millions of dollars raised from sponsorships, donors, and public funds are missing from the books. The foundation's chair reportedly sent a letter to Prince Harry and the Archwell Foundation demanding immediate transparency or face formal litigation. The communication was described by insiders as urgent, direct, and severe. Financial records from the last 2 years show repeated inconsistencies, unpaid invoices, and vague service entries, many of them connected to Archwell. And yet, no clear answers. Harry and Meghan were in Whistler, British Columbia, when the storm broke, ironically preparing for the next Invictus Games. But as they smiled for the cameras on the snowy slopes, the foundation they were supposed to represent was unraveling. Media outlets around the globe began to ask the same question: where is the money? One financial analyst speaking to The Guardian didn't hold back. $30 million doesn't just disappear, they said. It's either gross negligence or someone is hiding something. Either way, there will be legal consequences. Critics have long pointed fingers at Archwell for its murky financial operations. But now the scrutiny has intensified. According to internal reports, several Invictus-related expenses were routed through Archwell, labeled as undisclosed services or left unsettled altogether. And while the Sussexes were busy producing Netflix shows and launching media projects, the foundation's finances were allegedly slipping into chaos. But it's not just the lawyers and journalists asking questions. Veterans, the very people Invictus was meant to uplift, are now speaking out. Several former participants, both from the UK and the US, have come forward anonymously, saying they feel betrayed, used, and discarded. One former British Army competitor told the Daily Mail, "Harry stood in front of us and said we mattered. He made this about honor, about sacrifice, and now $30 million is missing? That's not just negligence. That's betrayal." Another U.S. Marine veteran was even more blunt. "If this is true, then shame on him. We were pawns in a PR campaign. And when it was convenient, we were forgotten." The scandal has already begun to snowball into something much larger. Major donors and sponsors have frozen their contributions until a full independent audit is conducted. Banks, private investors, and global charities are distancing themselves from the Sussexes. Some are reportedly demanding to see not just Invictus records, but Archwell's entire financial history. The most concerning part? There's still no public statement from Harry, not a press conference, not a tweet. Just silence, and that silence is becoming deafening. As the silence stretches on, public trust in Prince Harry is rapidly eroding. For years, he was the royal renegade turned humanitarian, the face of modern monarchy who risked everything to stand by what he believed in. But now, even his most loyal supporters are beginning to question that image. And in this case, the critics aren't just royal watchers or palace insiders. They're veterans, donors, financial analysts, and everyday citizens who believed Invictus was different. Veterans across countries are sharing their anger online. Hashtags like hashtag where's the money, hashtag Sussex scandal, and hashtag INVICTUSK are flooding platforms like X, Instagram, and TikTok. One viral post read, "Harry used wounded heroes to build a brand and now the money's gone. He should be ashamed." It was liked over 150,000 times in a single day. For once, the outrage isn't coming from tabloids. It's coming from respected media and grassroots supporters. Even typically favorable outlets like People magazine, The Atlantic, and The Washington Post are now raising concerns. The narrative has shifted. It's no longer about Harry's struggle with the royal family or his mental health advocacy. It's about money, lots of it, and accountability, behind the scenes. Sources say that emergency meetings have been called within Archwell, lawyers are involved, advisors are scrambling. But with each passing day of silence, speculation only grows stronger. What's worse, internal leaks suggest that the issue may go deeper than just missing funds. According to a former consultant who worked closely with Archwell, the foundation operated in constant confusion. He claimed that staff were frequently unclear on which expenses were Invictus-related and which were part of Harry and Meghan's media empire. There were no clear lines, he said. Budgets overlapped, invoices were vague, and people were afraid to ask questions. If this turns out to be true, it could spell disaster not just for Harry's reputation, but for Archwell as a whole. Charity regulators in both the UK and US are reportedly reviewing the case. If any public or donor funds were misused, it could result in fines, operational bans, or worse, criminal investigations. Legal experts say that if a lawsuit proceeds, Prince Harry could be subpoenaed. That means financial records opened, emails reviewed, and public testimony under oath. And Meghan? She may not be named directly in the legal documents, but as co-founder of Archwell and a visible face of the Invictus brand, questions about her role are inevitable. Meanwhile, the palace is keeping its distance. According to a senior royal source quoted in the Sunday Times, this is Harry's operation, his project, his responsibility. The firm will interfere. It's a cold but calculated move. The monarchy, already bruised by recent scandals, wants no part of the Sussex fallout. And insiders say that distancing was always the plan. For Harry, that isolation must be chilling. He stepped away from the institution to carve his own path, to define his own legacy. And now that legacy is unraveling. In fact, the Invictus Games were the only project that even his harshest critics could agree was genuinely noble. But now, even that final pillar is shaking. Some former Invictus athletes are even consulting legal teams about launching a class action lawsuit. The claim? That their stories, likenesses, and personal histories were used in promotional campaigns for a project now under fire and that their trust was violated. One veteran told The Mirror, "We gave our hearts to this. Our injuries, our trauma, our time. And if Harry let that be exploited, we deserve answers, in court if needed." And while lawsuits are still in the early stages, the legal groundwork is being laid. Investigators are digging into sponsorships, promotional materials, and tax filings. If they find that any funds raised under the Invictus banner were diverted toward personal branding, Netflix documentaries, or other Sussex-linked ventures, the consequences could be severe. So far, no charges have been filed. But the heat is rising and fast. As this scandal deepens, another devastating consequence is beginning to unfold. Sponsors are walking away. Major global brands that once proudly partnered with the Invictus Games are freezing their contributions until full financial clarity is provided. These aren't just logos on a banner. They are the financial backbone that allows the games to happen. One executive from a top-tier donor organization told the Financial Times, "We're not comfortable investing another cent until we know where the last $30 million went." That single sentence sent shockwaves through the veteran community and panic through the Sussex camp. Without this funding, the next Invictus Games scheduled in Whistler and Vancouver could be at risk of cancellation. For the hundreds of wounded veterans training for their chance to compete, this isn't just a missed opportunity, it's a gut punch. These athletes rely on the games not just for recognition, but for healing, exposure, and personal transformation. And now all of that is hanging by a thread. Meanwhile, Meghan Markle has remained mostly silent, appearing briefly in press photo ops alongside Harry and Whistler. But the whispers are getting louder. Critics argue that her media empire is partly to blame for the mess. Several insiders allege that Archwell's internal budgeting often blurred the lines between charitable funding and content production, especially when it came to the couple's deals with Netflix and Spotify. A former Archwell team member told Sky News, "Sometimes we'd approve a project and not even know if it was going to end up in a charity campaign or a Netflix documentary. It all felt interchangeable." That kind of chaos might sound like disorganization, but if any of it involves donor money being used for personal PR, it crosses a very serious line legally and ethically. And it's not just the money, it's the symbolism. Prince Harry has long painted himself as a soldier, a man who understands pain, sacrifice, and honor because he's lived it. The Invictus Games were the physical embodiment of that image. They were his redemption arc. His way of proving he didn't need the crown to be IMPACTFUL.now. That arc is collapsing. The emotional fallout is visible. Online discussions, once filled with admiration, are now brimming with disappointment and anger. Even those who champion Harry's break from the monarchy are questioning whether they were misled. Social media has turned from applause to backlash. One former supporter tweeted, "I defended Harry. I believed in Invictus. Now I feel like a fool. He used real pain to sell a fake image." Others are calling on Netflix, Spotify, and Penguin Random House to reconsider their deals with the Sussexes. Advocacy groups for veterans are petitioning streaming services to pull Sussex-linked documentaries and content until the scandal is resolved. And still, no response from Harry. It's a silence that speaks volumes. Every day that passes without a statement, without an apology, without a financial audit adds fuel to the fire. And make no mistake, the fire is spreading. Even Hollywood insiders, once eager to collaborate with the couple, are starting to keep their distance. The word now associated with Prince Harry isn't hero, it's liability. In private circles, there's talk that the Sussexes may be gearing up for a major legal defense. Some sources claim that a crisis PR team has been hired, and lawyers have begun prepping Harry for the possibility of deposition. If he's forced to testify under oath, the entire financial structure of Archwell could be exposed. Emails, bank statements, contracts, nothing would be off limits, and depending on what those records reveal, this could escalate from civil litigation to criminal investigation. But perhaps the most damning blow of all is the emotional one. Veterans trusted Harry. Donors believed in the mission. The public rooted for him. Now all of that trust is hanging by a thread, and many believe it's already been severed. Asterisk inside Montecito. The Sussex compound is reportedly on lockdown figuratively, if not literally. With the scandal snowballing and legal threats intensifying, Harry's once cozy relationship with the media has shifted into enemy territory. Once the darling of progressive outlets, even those platforms now tread carefully, framing their coverage with a mix of skepticism and disbelief. The reason is simple. This scandal isn't about personal drama. It's about money. It's about accountability. It's about veterans who feel betrayed. And it's becoming clear this is not going away quietly. What's perhaps most troubling is the scale of potential damage. If investigations into Archwell and the Invictus Foundation reveal intentional misuse of funds, it could open the floodgates. Other Sussex-linked nonprofits are reportedly auditing their own books, worried that they too may have unknowingly entangled themselves in this growing web of financial confusion. That includes joint ventures, collaborative campaigns, and cost-driven partnerships that now fear reputational blowback by association. A top executive from a children's health initiative that once partnered with Archwell said privately, "We were proud to be aligned with them, but now we're worried it could cost us our own donors." Even now, in the face of mounting outrage, there's still no full transparency. No official report, no detailed explanation, no apology, just controlled photo ops and vague silence for a public figure who once begged the world to believe he was different from the palace establishment, that he stood for honesty, empathy, and emotional intelligence. This silence feels especially jarring. The emotional core of this entire scandal rests on one cruel irony. The very people the Invictus Games were built to honor now feel discarded. They were the beating heart of the brand, the soul of the cause. And yet, many of them now say they feel like props in a royal rebranding exercise. One British veteran told The Telegraph, "I was proud to wear the Invictus logo, now I feel ashamed. I don't want to be associated with this anymore, not until someone tells us the truth." And still, behind the headlines and hashtags, something even more personal is unfolding. Prince Harry's identity, the one he rebuilt from the ashes of his royal past, is cracking. He gave up royal duties, royal protection, and royal responsibilities, but kept one thing: the Invictus Games. It was his crown jewel, his redemption, his proof that he didn't need Buckingham Palace to be a leader. Now it may become the very scandal that ends his influence. Royal insiders are reportedly keeping their distance, but also watching with concern. One palace aide, speaking under anonymity, told The Times, "This has the potential to be catastrophic. And not just for Harry. If this spirals, as a risk it drags in other royals by proximity, whether fair or not." And as journalists continue to dig, more questions are surfacing. Why were multiple Invictus-related invoices processed through Archwell instead of directly through the foundation? Why have donors not received detailed breakdowns of where their money went? And perhaps most importantly, where's the $30 million? Until these questions are answered, trust remains shattered. And with trust gone, everything else begins to crumble. At this point, it's no longer a scandal, it's a reckoning. In a shocking final twist, several veterans who participated in earlier Invictus Games have reportedly begun consulting legal teams about filing a class action lawsuit. Their potential claim? That their identities, medical histories, and stories of trauma were used in promotional campaigns tied to funds that are now unaccounted for. One former UK soldier summed up the growing frustration in a raw quote to the Mirror: "We trusted Harry because he was one of us. If he let this happen under his name, we want the truth in court, if that's what it takes." Legal experts say that if this moves forward, the floodgates could open. The court would likely subpoena internal communications between Archwell and the Invictus Foundation. If it turns out that even a fraction of that $30 million was funneled into Sussex-affiliated media or personal ventures, the fallout could be nuclear. The implications would stretch far beyond Harry. It would shatter the public's perception not just of the Invictus Games, but of every project the Sussexes touched. Public trust, already worn thin, could vanish completely. And here's the chilling reality. This is no longer just a reputational issue. It could turn criminal. Regulatory bodies are watching. Tax investigators may follow. Charity commissions in both the US and the UK are reportedly reviewing reports. If evidence of fraud, willful negligence, or misappropriation of funds is found, criminal charges could be filed. And even if the law doesn't come knocking, the court of public opinion already has. This isn't tabloid gossip or royal family feuding. This is about missing millions. This is about wounded veterans. This is about betrayal. Prince Harry built his post-royal identity on the back of this project. He stood on podiums surrounded by warriors who had lost limbs, who had suffered trauma, and said, "This is about them." But now, with $30 million gone and no answers in sight, the world is starting to believe it was always about him. And the irony? Even if this wasn't directly his doing, even if mismanagement or deception happened below his level, the damage is still his to carry. Because leadership is accountability. And right now, Prince Harry is silent. The palace won't step in. The firm has made it clear this is Harry's burden alone. And with every headline, every leaked invoice, every angry veteran, that burden is growing heavier. Former allies have gone quiet. Sponsors have stepped back. Veterans are furious. Donors are hesitant. And the world is watching. Will there be an audit? A public apology? Legal consequences? Or will Harry continue to hide behind palace walls and Montecito fences, hoping the scandal dies down? Because this isn't just about $30 million. It's about trust. It's about duty. It's about honor. And right now, all three are in short supply. If the Invictus Games collapse under this scandal, it won't just be a PR failure, it'll be the end of the Sussexes' public credibility. The collapse of a brand built on empathy. Now sinking in silence. So we ask again, where is the money? Who's responsible? And will justice ever come for the veterans who are promised more? Let us know what you think in the comments. Should Harry be held legally responsible if the money isn't accounted for? Do you believe the Sussexes can survive this fallout, or is this the end of their brand? And if you want the truth, the full truth, not the headlines, subscribe now and join us as we follow this story to its final conclusion, because this isn't just a royal scandal. It's a reckoning.